I came across a quote from Richard Tarnas, a very dynamic, astrologically inclined person that's been on my wavelength for years. And I'm just going to read the quote to you. Astrology doesn't tell you what will happen, but rather reveals the conditions and potentials that surround us, inviting us to participate consciously in the unfolding of our lives. This is why I invited the two Cocopellis to come and, play a little essence for us to consider here as we begin the consideration for this particular week upcoming. The astrology you might see as the music that the two Cocopellis are providing in this instance. Now the essence of being able to hear that music or, hear the conversations that the planets are actually engaging with one another is the essence of what it is that I can provide in my grasp of this astrological tool. I can't tell you how you're going to hear it, respond to it, or make a determination as to what to do with it. All I can point you in is a direction that these are the energy signatures that are coming down the pike for this next week. Do with it as you will. Monday. On Monday we have Mars forming a square to Saturn over here in Pisces. What do you imagine a Martian energy in Sagittarius, is like? Mars, impulse, action, that desire to, strike out, do something. In Sagittarius, that has, no real limitations saying, we're only going to allow you to do this, that, or the other thing. Whereas in Sagittarius, that Martian energy is like, it wants to strike out beyond any restrictions that, might be put in place by, let's say, Saturn, for instance. On this Monday, we have Mars in Sagittarius square to Saturn in Pisces. Square aspects. What is a square aspect? A square aspect takes the consideration of what it is that we are pondering, and it says, are there going to be any potential conflicts that might show up? That's a good square term, And yet at the same time, squares can also represent passion. Now there's a term you might not have thought about when Saturn crossed your plate. However, how about individuation? That is a square thing, and because what a square aspect brings to ponder is, here are two energies that they're in elements that don't exactly see eye to eye with each other. We have Mars up there in fire. Well, Mars in fire is just kind of like, well, yeah. However, Mars also rules Scorpio, a water sign. So Mars, it isn't an alien idea for Mars to have some of that water compassion or connective quality to it. Well, water sign. Saturn is in Pisces, a water sign. So just on the outlook, right, initially, we say we have a water sign Mars, and a fire sign Mars and a water sign Saturn, in that square aspect. There might be some rough edges to what it is that is being put onto the table for consideration. Can you sense the possibility of unlimited Sagittarian aspiration to be, do, think, and experience more? And Saturn saying, I am the planet that wants to, contain things. Put the parameters of restriction around something, saying, you shouldn't really go so far because you can't really, effectively utilize that kind of energy in a way that I, as Saturn, am going to be comfortable with. But just for a little extra tweak to this Monday consideration, what sign is Saturn in? It's in Pisces. And both Pisces and Sagittarius are ruled by Jupiter, retrograde down here in Cancer, where it's, it's exalted. It has some extra essence to it. It rules both of these, both where Mars and Saturn are. So, in one sense, you could say that even though it's a square aspect, presenting the possibility of some challenges, Jupiter in Cancer is saying, I am, in a trine to this Saturn in a sign that I rule. Therefore, I am giving a Jupiterian kind of energy to this Saturn. It's saying, yeah, Saturn, you might want to contain things in a certain fashion, but I, as Jupiter, over here in Cancer, are saying, can you feel the consequences of what trying to put too much restriction on things might constrain the depth of the potential realm of Pisces. Pisces is the unlimited expanse of spiritual levels of awareness, seeking us in a discovery moment to find an energetic core presence that exists within us that is everything, touches everything. So you kind of get a different essence to what it is that Saturn sense, being energized by this trine from Jupiter, might be able to contain the constraint just a wee bit looser. And what's that planet it's in square to? It's Mars in Sagittarius saying, don't hold me back. I need to do something. Can you feel that? Anyway, that's how the week starts. And, I almost forgot to mention, Mars is out of bounds for the rest of the year, on into early January. So, constraint and containment for a Sagittarian Mars, no. I don't think that's how the Martian energy really wants to be played. Tuesday's a Martian day. Tuesday, this square is still in place here, exactly 25 to 25. Jupiter is still talking to Saturn. And I should also throw in that Jupiter down here, at 23 degrees of Cancer, is in a quincunx, 5/12 of the 360-degree circle aspect, or an inconjunct, to this Mars. And what a quincunx brings about is it throws into this possibility of how you're going to play this particular aspect as being, these are a representation of two kinds of energy that, they don't exactly turn round to the same song. They don't exactly spin a tale that is on a wavelength that excites both of them. Because, similar, we have water and fire talking to each other. And oftentimes one of the flavors that you'll get with a quincunx inconjunct is there's some irreconcilable differences between what it is that is the perspective that those two planets bring into a consideration. The trick is that we're talking Jupiter, ruler of Sagittarius, so it's like, my Jupiter perspective on what it is that Mars up there in the sign I rule is not going to be, so hard and cold and dry in its irreconcilable difference with what Mars wants to accomplish while doing that fire dance in Sagittarius. It's actually possibly kind of saying, well, this time I'll let you get away with it. I'm going to, give you, an extra push from my perspective to, inspire you. Oh, there's a good Sagittarian term. Inspire you to take chances. Yeah. We get to Wednesday. Have you been watching Mercury? Mercury is getting near the end of its trajectory through Scorpio. And on Wednesday, Mercury is going to directly oppose Uranus across the Scorpio-Taurus axis. Now, generally, an opposition can be seen as, here are some different perspectives. But with oppositions, you get elements that they don't really diametrically challenge each other. We're talking water and earth here. They bring into a consideration something that they're trying to work out. And one of the factors of an opposition is the vitality, if you will, of what signs opposed to each other bring into any equation. There's an inspiration for, the expansion of awareness from those two different opposed perspectives that really require each other in any consideration to actually allow for a flowering of what it is that they represent while opposed to each other as, necessary aspects of a particular consideration. And when you're talking Taurus, personal resourcefulness, personal resources, and Scorpio, shared resources, you can kind of see that there's something that could tie these two energies together effectively and, add some essence to this opposition that is easily going to expand, if you will, upon the fact that it has been said that both Mercury and Uranus are octaves of each other. Mercury, the level of curiosity that wants to, poke its questioning into everything that it can touch. And Uranus is like, I am an outer planet. I have that, potential level of curiosity that Mercury is stimulating, that I want to, in some fashion, stir the cauldron or the pot just a little bit more to see what else is there in that curiosity poke that I can stimulate to the next level, that I might shake up enough that what I thought I knew, basic Mercury, is actually just a step along a process that is about knowing more. You can kind of see this opposition at work across that, what do I own that, personally in that Taurus thing, which Uranus has recently gone retrograde into, that right now is being shaken up and can spawn a deeper version of Mercury's curiosity into the deeper mysteries, Scorpio, of what it is that life is trying to potentially keep secret from me. And, in my Uranus stirring it up way, I'm going to say, come on, Mercury, feed me that secret message, that mysterious secret message that Scorpio has presented to you in your recent trajectory through that sign, that I might, as Uranus, be able to spin in such a fashion that we're actually going to be able to expand what it is that is the shared resources that will develop from this investigation. The 11th comes along. Mercury on this day is going to shift. It's here at the very last degree, only 21 seconds, 21 minutes left before it shifts into Sagittarius. So this is a shifting energy day. Mercury's going to change hats, from its, deeper trolling of the deeper mysteries of the life experience into that expanded version of Sagittarius, taking Mercury's curiosity and say, what more is there that I can discover? Anyway, that's a hat that's about to be shifted on this day. Also on this day, you see the moon down here, 17 degrees of Virgo, is forming its waning square to the sun up here at 19 degrees of Sagittarius. It actually, because it's almost 20 degrees, by the time the moon catches up to the exact square, it will happen at 20 degrees of Virgo and 20 degrees of Sagittarius. But be that as it may, what we're looking at here is the waning square of the essence that was initiated at the new moon in Sagittarius, with a level of, what else is there set in motion. Come to think of it, I believe that new moon happened at 28 degrees of Scorpio. I'm looking at my notes here. Oh yeah, 28 degrees of Scorpio. So, the exact same degree that Mercury was opposed to Uranus as we were go through this week. But this waning square, crisis in consciousness, is usually the phrase back from early Dane Rudger studying 50 some odd years ago, as a methodology of being able to present a ponder to the effectiveness of what we set as our intention at this particular near moon, at near the end of Scorpio, to really be able to ferret out, if you will, some of those interpersonal, deep, secretive, mysterious connections that we have with one another and all of life, in such a way that as the sun has been going through Sagittarius and this waning square lunar trajectory to that Sagittarius sun is saying, as a crisis of consciousness, have I been appropriate and effective with what it was that I set out on during this particular lunar cycle to penetrate into in an expansive fashion, Sagittarius? Or did I get waylaid somewhere along the way? Can you sense a crisis in consciousness in that question? Am I, as a Sagittarian perspective, energetic solar being right now, being held back in any fashion by what it is that I set in motion for this particular lunar cycle, when the depths of that water initiation, which had Mercury right there conjunct, and Cassimi, the sun, saying, Cassimi, Mercury, I have been given, this is Mercury talking, I have been given permission to ask questions that normally I wouldn't be given permission to ask. This is the benefit of being in the heart of the sun for Mercury. And that was part of the intention of this lunar cycle. So you have to ask yourself, from a Virgoan perspective, have I aligned all the portions and parts of this investigative process effectively enough that something new is being given the opportunity to be birthed in that Sagittarian expansive level of awareness that I can bring down into this lunar Virgoan container and allow it to, energize and develop more depth, more understanding, more essence of process that is going to continue to go forward in a way that can wake up this whole process, this whole experience. Well, if that isn't enough for the week for you, as we get into our weekend, we're going to just go all the way to Sunday, excuse me. Yes, we are in a weekend. Mars on Sunday has moved into a square with Neptune, which, by the way, when we started out the week, on Monday, Neptune went direct. So it was no longer really trying to, skim along under the radar, so to speak. However, it's still Neptune. It's still in Pisces. So even to contemplate skirting along under the radar from a Piscean perspective is just kind of like, well, yeah. And the reason for that is because not everyone, or perhaps not as readily accessible, are the realms of Pisces to someone who might be overwhelmed with, the experience of being entangled in the material realm of incarnation. Because Pisces, it may, tickle the edges of that material aspect of the adventure of life as the hints to opportunities to, let go, release that material realm hold upon you. Because there's something far deeper, far more profound about why you incarnated at this time, that just a bit too much influence from the material side of this physical incarnation will get in the way of your being able to truly tune into what it means to be a soul, incarnate, to develop, to continue to develop as a soul being. You can still utilize soul awareness in the material experience. But I guarantee you, it isn't a complete wash of the material wave upon you that obliterates any understanding, any awareness, any essence of who you are as a soul being. No, not. This square from our, guess what, still active and energetic Sagittarian Mars up here, in square to Neptune down there. Remember, both in Jupiterian's essence signs. So what might be able to transpire as a square function that says, in some essence, there might be a challenge, but at the same time, this Mars-Neptune dance may actually develop into an inspiration. Do you feel that Sagittarian hint there? Being driven by Mars into an essential exploration of Neptune's unlimited creative potential in Pisces, a sign that it has a very strong affinity with. Saying, by the way, my Martian friend, in your sojourn through that Sagittarian realm, were you aware of me as Neptune's being a presence in all those potential considerations of what else is there that I as Neptune in Pisces have been inviting you to consider? There are many of us along this pathway that have that curiosity and are on that particular trek. Come. I know you're out of bounds still, Mars. Take a chance. Be adventurous. This is what this week's dance is all about. I don't have much else to add to that. Be awake. Next week Mars is going to shift, still out of bounds, into Capricorn, where it is exalted. Out of bounds, exalted, sort of like I get the picture of, hey, somebody lit a fire behind Mars, which is a fire kind of energy, to say, what else is there? We'll cover that next week when we get into it. Anyway, that's all I got for this week. Ciao.